Hi guys, I'm live. Lovely to see you all. I'm in a very cheery mood today because it's been a beautiful sunny day. Who's here already? So for those of you who are coming in right now, Kate Bartlett is going to be doing trivia and joining us at the same time. So if she pops up a question that has got nothing to do with Chardonnay, I reckon she's using us as her brains trust. And I think that a little bit of help with any questions that you need, Kate. We're on it. Kay Farrow's here. Hi, Kay. Cutty's here. Rika, hi. Welcome. John and Carty both here. Oh, yum, a dinner box from Bellotta. I was actually just looking at that today and I've missed the Mornington Peninsula delivery for this week, but I think I might have to get one next week because it looks, did you get the one with the petiviers, the little pies, or the terrine? Anyway, they all look good. Bellotta is amazing. Another one of my favourite places that I'm looking forward to going back to. Isaac, Jack, and Hannah, lovely to see you. And Michael and Rod, good to see you. I made it back home without needing a coffee or another toilet break, you'll be pleased to know. A bit too much information for everyone, but I was doing deliveries and Rod very kindly was concerned for my welfare, but I was fine. I got there. It was all good. Renee, lovely to see you. And Matt, Emily and Kevin, good to see you. I've just had a delivery from Barney Flanders, a little bottle of gin, and he said that he had a nice catch up with you this afternoon, I think, or recently anyway. Rob and Deb, hi. David, hello. Aravan, good to see you. Jeff, good to see you. Alice and Andrew, good to see you. Nick and Jenny, beautiful to see you. The Petiviers. Cutty, I want to know how delicious they are. Actually, I don't because it just make me hungry. Michael Woodward, lovely to see you. I did a delivery to you as well this week. That was fun. It's really nice to see where everyone lives when I'm doing my deliveries on a Wednesday. Hello, Karen and David. I've been getting sent photographs of people's delicious food already, and it's all looking good. We're all excited about Oysters Kilpatrick, Craig, fantastic. Hi. And Sam, hi, how are you? Samantha. Penny, hello. Lovely to see you. Yes, he is lovely, Emily. He's good value, and the gin is awesome. I don't know if you've sampled it yet, but yeah, once you get onto the Balcombe gin, it's very hard to downgrade again. Hello, Amanda. Lovely to see you. And Michael and Nikki, great to see you. And Arch and Polly, good to see you. We've sent my Polly out into the other room because she was having a little barking fit. But Frodo is lying in the vestiges of the evening sun, just taking it all in, just chilling out. It's all lovely. Super normal lobster roll. Renee, that was the other thing I was craving this week. You guys are just like pushing all my buttons this week. That's crazy. But yes, I know I did recommend it, so it's not that surprising. Hello, Sue and Daryl. I have a bottle or two of gin for you waiting here. So it's just, you know, the community notice board. It's pretty important. Michael and Rod, same for you. Super normal lobster roll. Good, excellent. If you haven't had one before, it won't be your last, I don't reckon. They're very delicious. Pinchy's lobster rolls too, Amanda. That sounds awesome. And Kate. Hi, Kate. Right. Okay. Lovely to see you all. Everyone's very prompt and chatty with the chat. I also want to say hi to Marina and all of her family who I think are joining us for the first time tonight. I hope that you've managed to get the system working and be lovely to see you. And hello to everybody else who's choosing not to comment. It's really good. Shell, tuna sashimi, yum. That sounds delicious. You're all making me hungry. I'm going to have to open this wine so that at least I have a couple of glasses of Chardonnay to go for. Jeff, Brunel and Wash Rind, yum. Prawns and brie, Kay. That's not only. That's just different. It's all delicious, and I think they'll all work really, really well with these beautiful Chardonnays. So, what are we doing tonight? We are looking at 2 Chardonnays. So I have 2 glasses, and I've gone for the tasting glasses that we use in Cellar Door tonight because they're both young Chardonnays, and certainly the Devil Bean Creek tends to be a little bit fruit-driven. So I just thought these, rather than the big bowl-shaped Pinots, they might get a bit lost in those. But it doesn't. I think that a bigger bowl-shaped glass would also work quite well. Excuse me. We have the Devil Bend Creek Chardonnay in the large bottle, 2019. Rika, Marina, got it. Excellent. Very good. And we have in the little bottle, 2019 Moorooduc Estate Chardonnay. Now, this is fun for lots of reasons. First of all, the half bottles, we've nearly sold out of our half bottles. We've sold out of all of our Pinot Noir bottles because people have been buying them in lockdown so that they don't drink too much, I think. The Chardonnay, we've got a little bit left, but Chardonnay halves, we're 2 vintages ahead compared to our whole bottles. So our current release of Chardonnay, if you buy a 750ml bottle, is the 2017 that we've tasted a little while ago and is delicious. The 2019 750ml bottles will be releasing probably in about 18 to 24 months. So you're getting a little sneak peek here, but because it's in a half bottle, it will have developed slightly differently from in a 750ml bottle. And it's one of the reasons we're a little bit we're a bit reticent to bottle too much of our wine in half bottles because it does look better when it's packaged in a 750ml. Not just look with your eyes, but when we say in wine industry speak, when we say something looks better, we mean it actually smells better, tastes better, ages better, all of those things. We look at wine with all of our senses, not just our eyes. Sam, muscles, yum. So 2 bottles of wine, well, 1.5 bottles of wine. Don't want to go crazy. But what I was going to suggest that if it's just 1 or 2 of you doing the tasting on your own, which is often the case in lockdown, if you've got extra people in your household who want to share, that's awesome. But if it's just 1 or 2 of you and you don't want to drink a whole bottle and a half of wine tonight, you don't have to. I'm not forcing you to drink the whole of each bottle. And Penny, you are spot on. We have talked about this before, but I wanted to remind you that you can, once you've drunk this half bottle of Chardonnay, don't throw it out, don't recycle it. Give it a rinse with some hot water, dry it out, and then tonight, if you've drunk all of that and half of that, before you get to the halfway mark, pour half of the bottle of Devil Bend Creek into the empty bottle of Estate Chardonnay, all the way up to the top, put the lid on, put it in the fridge, it'll be fine for at least a week. As long as you do it soon, if not immediately after you've opened it. Obviously, we can't do that when we've got to empty this bottle before we can put something else in it tonight. But for future, if you open a bottle, particularly young wine, it just will hold really nicely. If it's red wine, you don't have to keep it in the fridge. Just pop it somewhere cool and dark, like the larder. And there's a couple of reasons for that. If it's kept in the cool and the dark, it won't develop as quickly. That's how you should store all of your wine. But also, if you put it away in the fridge for white wine or away in the pantry with red wine, it's a little bit harder for you when you've finished your half bottle to decide to go, I'll just drink the rest of the other bottle, which is fine if you feel like it and you're thirsty and it's, you don't have to worry about getting up early in the morning or whatever. But it's nice to make ourselves pause and think before we go for that next half a bottle of wine, that next glass of wine. It's good to have a think, see how you feel, have a glass of water before you rush in and by mistake drink a little bit more than you actually meant to and then feel a bit crummy the next day. So it's my responsible service. Richard's at the other side of the room shaking his head in horror and disbelief. He's actually keeping Polly from barking. She's being very weird tonight. He's got her on the lead, poor little dog. All right, so Devil Bend Creek Chardonnay, I'm going to put into my left glass. Yes, Deb, keep it for a week. Ha, ha, ha. Well, you laugh at me, but you have to remember that I've spent quite a lot of my life studying wine and trying to taste as many wines as I can. And particularly when you're tasting wine and studying and trying to learn for an exam like the Master of Wine, you need to keep your brain sharp. So opening a bottle of wine and drinking the whole bottle of wine is not the best way to remember how that wine tasted, how that wine was structured so that you'll recognize it again in a blind tasting. Unfortunately, when you're trying to learn about lots of different wines, then first of all, you don't want to drink too much in one go. And if you're going to be really extreme, drinking any alcohol can cloud your judgment a little bit. You'll be surprised to hear. But often I was tasting 2, 3, 6 wines against each other so I could compare and contrast. And so then, particularly if I was at times when I was living by myself or when I was sharing with a housemate, I lived with my sister for a while and she was studying medicine and she had weird hours, so she wasn't a very good drinking companion. I would have lots of half bottles around the house that I could put aside and drink the other half of the bottle over the next couple of days and not waste lots of delicious wine. So it does work sometimes. It means you can open more bottles and give yourself more options. So what, Michael? Oh, scallop pie with ginger chives and crack. That sounds delicious, Michael. I'll have some. Second bottle, a little bottle of Chardonnay. I'm going to pop in my second glass. And for me, I'm going to put the estate Chardonnay in the glass that facing me is on my right. I hope that all makes sense. It doesn't really matter whether you pour left to right or right to left, as long as you remember which wine is in which glass. With two different wines, it doesn't make a lot of difference. The issue being that these two wines are both from 2019 vintage. They're both made here at Moorooduc Estate by the same winemaking team. They're fairly similar colours because of that. They're the same sort of age, same winemaking. The fruit comes from 2 different fruit sources, and there is one big difference in the winemaking, and that is the oak. The way that the type of oak that the wine has spent time in during its fermentation process and after that. So we'll sort of unwrap that a little bit in a minute. But let's taste the 2 wines first. I'm going to taste the Devil Bed Creek first. You can let her go, Richard. Little weird dog. So give it a swirl, give it a smell. And one of the reasons that I put that beautiful photograph of blossoms on the waiting room page for this week's tasting is that young Chardonnay, and particularly this Devil Bed Creek Chardonnay, always reminds me of blossom and white flowers. It's got a real honeyed, blossomy kind of an aromatic to it. I think it's really lovely. Mine came out of the fridge about half an hour ago. It's still a little bit too cold, so I'm going to keep swirling it and smelling it. Before I taste it, I'll put that down. I'll do the same with the estate Chardonnay. Everyone's gone quiet, eating, drinking, thinking, swirling. Already, that smells different. So let me give you a little rundown on how these 2 wines are made. So both of these wines are made from fruit that's been hand-picked, which means humans go into the vineyard and cut the bunches off with secateurs and put them into a little box, and they come into the winery like that, like the sort of bunches of grapes that you buy from the supermarket. So you've got the grapes on the stalks, it's all together. Lovely. And then those whole bunches get tipped straight into the press. The press is an airbag press here at Moorooduc, if you haven't been to see it. It's not very exciting, but what the airbag press does, it's quite a gentle modern way of pressing grapes to get the juice out of them. It is basically a big cylinder on its side with a bit that swirls around on the inside. So it turns around. So that'll stir up the grapes. Polly is a bit overexcited tonight. Polly. Poor little dog. She's like completely freaked out. She and Frodo met a cat in the vineyard today, and they were having a lovely time with this next door neighbour's cat, and they've both gone a bit funny as a result. So we've got overexcited dogs. So the press will turn around, and it's an airbag press because it's actually got an airbag on the inside of it. And when we turn it on, the airbag blows up, and so you get the area that the grapes are in gets smaller as the airbag around the edges blows up and squashes in and squashes the grapes, and that extracts the juice. And the reason that we use the whole bunches straight into the press is that the stalks actually allow the juice to trickle through between those stalks much better than if you actually de-stemmed the fruit from the stalks. Then it all kind of compacts, because Chardonnay particularly is quite pulpy and quite icky, and it all kind of compacts, and then the juice all gets stuck in between the skins, and it's really hard to extract it. And then you have to press it harder, and then you pull more of the tannins, more of the bitterness out of the skin. So we don't want to do that. Yes, Craig, airbag press is different to a basket press. We have a basket press here at Moorooduc as well that we use for small batches that are too small for the airbag press. But the basket press is basically a big basket on a stand, and it's got little gaps between the slats, and then it's got a big weight at the top that pneumatically, you can get a basket press that runs on pneumatics. You can get ones that run on sort of a kind of corkscrew system that you have to actually crank the thing down. That's really hard work. Ours is on a pneumatic system that you turn it on and it goes down really slowly and pushes the grapes down, and the juice comes out the side. The airbag press is a little bit gentler. The basket press works really well for small batches. It's a lot more work for the winemaking team, loading it up and unloading it, putting it together, pulling it apart. The airbag press is, a bit difficult to clean, but Jeremy, who is our winemaker, who you've met, he's small enough to fit into the airbag press. He gets in and like pulls all the bits out, and then we hose it all down, and he hoses it down from the inside. So it's always, winemaking is 80% cleaning, is one of the things that people say again and again and again, and it really is. But the airbag press is great because, as well as pushing from the outside in to squash the grapes, then as it tumbles around, then it mixes it up and lets more of the juice come out that way. It's quite a slow process, but it's not as slow as the basket press, because the basket press, you've got no way of stirring things up partway through the pressing cycle. You've just got to keep pressing down and pressing harder to get more juice out. So didn't mean for that explanation to take that long. I'm sorry. So then the juice comes out of the press and it goes straight into barrel. And we allow all of the solids in the juice to go into barrel. It actually goes into a big stainless steel tank. So we stir it up so the solids are all evenly distributed through the juice, and then it goes into barrel. We don't add any yeast. We've talked about this before. It's all wild yeast fermented. But the barrels that we use for the Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay, you have another smell of that. I'm going to have a sip in a minute because I'm getting a bit parched. The barrels we use for this wine are all old barrels, and that means that they're neutral in their flavour profile. They shouldn't give the wine any oak flavour. We've sucked the oak flavour out of them, and we're just using them because they're a nice sized vessel, and they allow the wine to just breathe a little bit. They allow a little bit of oxygen to go in. They allow the wine to expand and compress a little bit as it ferments and as it sits and settles after fermentation. And it's a terrific way to ferment Chardonnay. You lose a little bit of primary fruit, but you gain this lovely secondary textural and savouriness, textural character and savouriness that we really like in our wine. I'm going to have a sip. So this wine and this wine, the winemaking that I've described up until now, exactly the same, except this second wine, about 20 to 25% of the juice went into new French oak barrels rather than old French oak barrels. New barrels, in their first year, give a lot of flavour from the oak to the wine. 1-year-old barrels, so when you've used them once and you use them a second time, they also give a little bit of oak flavour to the wine. So the combination of new barrels, 20% new barrels, and a few 1-year-old barrels that this second wine has spent time in, will give the wine an extra flavour, and that's the flavour from the oak. It's not just the aroma and flavour that the oak gives it, but it's a little bit more texture, a little bit more tannin. When we talk about white wine, we talk more about phenolics than we talk about tannin, but it's almost the same thing. So having another smell, can you smell something a little bit different there? It's not just the oak, and I'll explain that in a minute, but first of all, we're talking about the oak. There's a little vanilla-y kind of note there. There's a little bit of a caramelly, vanilla-y, slightly cedary, spicy character in that second wine that's not in the first wine. The first wine's all blossom and lemon rind and lemon oil and a bit of peach. It's really lovely. It's lovely, bright floral and fruit flavours. There's a little bit of savouriness there, which comes from other bits of winemaking that I'll talk about in a minute. So there is a bit of cheesiness, there's a little bit of butteriness, there's a bit of complexity there, but it's quite a bright, fresh wine. Lovely crisp acidity, very refreshing. The second wine is a little bit richer, a little bit rounder. That's right, Katie. No, old oak barrels don't give flavour to the new wine from previous wines because we work very, very hard to clean them. And so I think if you get, that's not 100% true, because if you get a problem in a barrel and a wine develops a nasty character to it, such as Brettanomyces, which is a spoilage yeast, there are other things that can go wrong, then an old oak barrel that's had problem wine in it can pass that problem on to the next vintage that you put in it. So if you have a problem wine and a problem barrel, best to get rid of that barrel completely. If the wine that's been in that oak barrel is clean and sound and delicious, then theoretically, so many questions. Theoretically, the older barrel shouldn't affect the newer wine. But one thing that we do is put white wine in barrels that have had white wine in them before. And we sometimes put red wine in barrels that have had white wine in them, but we don't put white wine in barrels that have had red wine in them because they do take on a little bit of the colour and a bit of the tannin from the red wine. So there is a little bit of that. But the flavours, the flavour profile that's left in the barrel, if there is any, and there shouldn't really be much, if any, if you're doing your cleaning properly, will be completely subsumed by the wine that you put in next. Okay. Sorry, just going back over the questions to make sure I've answered everything. Shell, that sounds delicious. And I agree, the sashimi would be better with the Devil Ben Creek and the garlicky pasta would be better with the estate because the estate's a little bit creamier, a little bit more buttery, a little more savoury. It will work better with those more complex, richer flavours, whereas the sashimi needs something clean and fresh and bright. Zach, shaving old barrels is not part of the cleaning process. In fact, if you shave a barrel, it's quite a hard thing to do, but if you shave a barrel, then you're taking away all of the work that the barrel maker has done in making the barrel, because part of the art of making a barrel is charring the oak on the inside. So before wine goes into barrels, they basically build the barrel with a fire inside the barrel to help to bend the staves, but also to caramelize the flavor of the wood. If you put wine in an uncharred oak barrel, it will taste like bourbon. If you think about bourbon, that boot polish character, bourbon is aged in uncharred white American oak, and that's the flavour that gives to your bourbon, which is fine in bourbon, but not great in Mornington Peninsula Chardonnay or Pinot Noir or any wine really, as far as I'm concerned. So we use only French oak, and we use a medium toast, which means that it's been charred to a medium amount, which means you get a little bit of caramelisation, but not too much of that burny flavour. It's a very cool process, and the people who make barrels are incredibly artisanal and incredibly talented, so it's pretty awesome. Michael, baby Grange. Yeah, look, I think sometimes people will use barrels up until the next time they use them, and at some wineries they'll have certain techniques that they use. So Penfolds will put Grange into new oak barrels, and then when they've finished using those barrels for Grange, then they'll take the wine out and they'll put something else that's a little bit less precious in straight on top of those Grange flavours. They'll probably give it a rinse, I would say. I wouldn't know. I'm not a big expert on what Penfolds does with their barrels, but they would use that as a marketing ploy to say, these are the barrels that we put Grange in, and now we've put this other wine in that's not as expensive, but you get a bit of a nuance of Grange. I think that's more of a marketing ploy than real wine science. But I'm happy to be told otherwise. I'll have to talk to Peter Gago next time I get the chance. So, yes. Everyone's enjoying. Is that what they call it? Chardonnay. Thanks, Nina. I can always count on you to make a punny joke. Alison, I don't think coopers or barrel makers, I don't think it is a dying art. I think there are probably less people doing it, but they haven't really worked out a way of making barrels of the quality that people require using robots or using machinery so much. It probably, yes, Kay, I think that is the claim for Saint Henri, but I think it, as I say, I think it's probably more something that the marketing department likes to talk about rather than it being a real, than it being a real thing. But, it's the vagaries of barrels are crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Barrels can be the same ones for years. That's the same here. The barrel actually isn't giving any extra flavour to the wine, though. I don't buy that. I just think that's if your top wine's Grange, then to say that something's gone in there, then fantastic. Bollinger has their own cooper on site, and so does Krug. So champagne makers use barrels as well. Some don't. And a lot of the big houses have beautiful. Kate, I'm so glad that your chat is going well. Are you winning the trivia, though? That's the most important question. I'm getting completely lost as well, so I'm not keeping up with that chat either. I'm flailing around all over the place. So let me get back to my winemaking. We're not going to get to talk about wine reviews tonight, are we? It's just going to be Chardonnay. It's a bit hard when we're tasting two wines. So after the wines have fermented in barrel, and I've talked to you about this before, we always leave some headspace in the top of the barrel for the ferments to go through so that they don't come out the top, because when they do come out the top, they make a horrible mess. And then when they finish fermenting, we top them up to the top. We put the bung in and we put them away, and those barrels get put away for 8 months. We look at them probably once a month, and what I mean by look at them, we unstack them all, and we take the bungs out and we taste them to make sure that they're in good condition still. We top them up if they've evaporated a little bit. We give them a really good stir to get those dead yeast lees and solids mixing around in the wine so that we don't get too much reduction in the bottom of the barrel. And then we close them up again and stack them up again, and that's them for another month. And what happens during that time is, if the wine wants to, and our wine usually wants to, it will go through a malolactic fermentation. And we've talked again about malolactic fermentation. So I hate to be repeating myself, but I think this is a really fascinating thing. The malolactic fermentation changes malic acid, which is the acid that you find in green apples, and it changes it to lactic acid, which is the acid that you find in milk and cream and butter. And it's the thing that made those 1980s overripe, over-oaked, over everything Chardonnays all buttery and sort of taste like overcooked pineapple chunks and buttered popcorn. So at its extreme, a malolactic fermentation can overdo the conversion of acids and can soften the wine out too much. But where we are on the Mornington Peninsula, we get beautiful natural acidity. We get a small amount of malic acid, and we get a lot of other acid in the juice, And so when we let it go through a complete malolactic fermentation, it doesn't change the acid level very much. It just gives us a little bit of mid-palate creaminess. So, it's a good thing if you do it in the right place. It's a good thing if you do it in a controlled way, or if you understand what your chemical makeup of your wine is before you put it through. And it's something that we've done over the years. And now that we pick our Chardonnay a little bit earlier than we did maybe 15, 20 years ago, that malolactic fermentation, we really like that little extra textural creaminess that gives us. Cutty, barrels versus stainless steel. So stainless steel is really interesting. The Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay, we used to make at least a portion of it in stainless steel, fermented in stainless steel. And it really, so stainless steel keeps all the oxygen out. Oh, Renee, I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. The stainless steel keeps all the oxygen out and keeps all the fruit in the wine. So there's no breathing of the wine when you're fermenting and aging wine in stainless steel. Grape varieties like Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Sauvignon Blanc do really lovely things in stainless steel because they already have a lot of beautiful fruit expression. Chardonnay, on the other hand, is what we call a non-aromatic grape variety. It doesn't have a lot of character as just grape juice. It's got lots of sweetness, it's got nice weight, it's got nice texture, but the flavors and the aromas develop better, we think, if you use oak in the fermentation, if you let them go through a malolactic fermentation, if you've got appropriate amounts of acid, and also leaving the juice on the yeast lees and on the solids gives us a little bit more texture, a little bit more balance, a little bit more weight to the wine. So Chardonnay is a grape variety that is molded very much during the winemaking process and during decisions made in the winemaking process, whether you do this, whether you do that. And if you make a Chardonnay just in stainless steel with no oxygen and none of those other things, it can be a little bit dull. And I think a lot of people talk about making Chardonnay in a Chablis way because people talk about Chablis in France not seeing new oak. But a lot of traditional Chablis are actually fermented in old oak, sometimes big barrels, sometimes little barrels, not traditionally in stainless steel. Stainless steel is a pretty new way of fermenting and storing wine. You do get some people using it, but Chablis naturally has less fruitiness to it than Australian Chardonnay because it's grown in France and it's a bit more restrained. Anyway, that's a story for another day. And I'm talking too much about these things. Penny, the 2016 Moorooduc Estate Chardonnay would be delicious, so I think you're doing well with that. Who needs crackers, Jeff? They're just extra calories. Renee, the 2011 Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay being 9 years old, a lot of people assume this wine doesn't age. I've been really surprised at how well it does age. I would, if you haven't, have you drunk it yet? If you haven't drunk it yet and you're thinking about when to drink it, I would stick it in the fridge and have it one night when you're having something a little bit richer, a little bit cheesy, eggy, quiche kind of things, because it will have developed some more richness and roundness. But the 11, remember, was quite a restrained vintage because of the weirdness of the vintage. So there'll probably be quite a lot of good acidity still there. I would have a backup bottle just in case, but it could also be absolutely delicious. It would be absolutely delicious, probably, if it's been stored well and little bit of good luck as well. So give it a go and report back, please. We'd like to know how the 2011 Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay looked. I've had some older ones that have looked amazing. I've had some older ones that have been a bit tired. So it just depends. Michael, I agree. I think they are such different wines. Tell me which one you would take on your desert island. Was it the Estate Chardonnay? That would be mine personally, but a lot of people love that Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay. I think it's a little bit of it's always good to have backup bottles, guys. But that 19 Estate Chardonnay, if you remember that we won't be releasing the 750ml bottles for a little while, that will give it just a little bit more time to round out. It's not going to change a lot in 12 to 18 months, but it will just sort of, it'll smooth out a little bit. It'll be even better then when we release it. But I think it's looking gorgeous as it opens up. It's got a lot more of that nuttiness. It's a little bit estery at the moment. You know, there's sort of lifted sort of lemon, you know, those what are they called? Starburst lollies. I don't know how many of you have eaten Starburst lollies recently, but this one's got a little bit of the Starburst, lemon sweet on the nose, but on the palate, it's savoury and gorgeous. Oh, hi, Kate. That's awesome. I thought it was you. I think that the 19 Estate Chardonnay also has this little hint of, there's an Australian character to that wine, which is starting to just open up in sort of an expression of feijoa fruit. If anyone, you know, not all of us have tasted feijoas. My grandmother used to have a feijoa vine in her front yard, and we used to eat them off the vine. It's got that, it's sort of a little bit tropical, but it's kind of green tropical fruit characters rather than being sort of overripe. Oh, that's interesting, Zach. What else was there was something else I was supposed to tell you guys, and I've just completely lost track of where I got to. That's embarrassing. I'll just have a sip of wine while I think about that for a moment. We have actually just about run out of time anyway. Yeah, I think that these wines are wines that, depending on what you're eating, what's going on around you, what's happening in the world, they'll do different things for you at different times. That Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay, I think, is terrific value for money. I think it's a lovely summer, as Kay said, it's a lovely, easy drinking summer wine, particularly if you're not really a Sauvignon Blanc fan, which I'm not. It is hard to decide between the two because they both have their positive characters. I was going to tell you. That's what I was going to tell you. Thank you, Michael and Nikki. I think you prompted me probably by mistake. But the other difference between these two wines, of course, is the fruit source, which we haven't gone into at all. So the Devil Ben Creek Chardonnay, most, if not all, of that fruit comes from a vineyard about 5 kilometres to the south of us called the Osborne Vineyard, and Frank Osborne planted that vineyard back in the late 80s, I think, or maybe early 90s, late 80s. And we made wine for him for a long time, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. And sadly, Frank died before his time. He had cancer and we lost him to it. And his family, while they liked having the property, were not that interested in making wine or having wine made for them. And we leapt at the opportunity to lease that vineyard because we loved the quality of the fruit. It's very different from our vineyard and from the other vineyards that we source from because it's set up slightly differently. The vines have got some good age on them now, but they're set up so that they do often crop a little bit higher than our other vineyards, and so we get a little bit more voluptuousness, we get a little bit more freshness, a little bit more brightness of fruit, but they don't have this. It never has the same length as the Moorooduc Estate Chardonnay, which is fruit that comes from the McIntyre vineyard, 80%. And 20% fruit from the Robinson vineyard. So the McIntyre vineyard brings a richness and a roundness and that sort of that lovely long tail to it, partly because the vines are a little bit older, partly because of the soil and the aspect and all those things. I do think that this McIntyre vineyard has some very special qualities that we're only really starting to understand. We don't really know why, but you get these characters. You get that little salty tang on the finish as well, always from the McIntyre vineyard. And the Robinson vineyard brings that lovely bright lemony acidity to the wine, a purity and a lift, some top notes. So having fruit from two different vineyards in the McIntyre Chardonnay gives us a little bit more depth and a little bit more complexity. And the Osborne vineyard, you know, the Devil Ben Creek wine retails for $30 a bottle, full price, and you'll sometimes find people discounting it. So go crazy if you do. The estate Chardonnay retails at full price for $40 a bottle, full bottle, $22 a bottle for the little half bottle because packaging is more expensive. But that $10 is really just a reflection of how much it costs us to grow the fruit and also the new oak that goes into the estate wine. So they're the two differences in the price of the wines, and I think in the style of the wines. I really struggle to describe the Devil Ben Creek because I don't think our entry-level wine really gives it justice. I don't think it's our least good wine. I think it's just a different style of wine. So, yeah, if you want to get a bit more of that Devil Ben Creek to get you through the warmer months, Jeff has made us a little special button that I sent out on the mail out this afternoon. I've noticed that somebody has actually already ordered a case. That's a little bit of a special price just for you guys. So grab a case and then you can just glug it happily over summer. Okay, what are the other questions? Yes, Karen, I would much prefer to have a good rosé or a Pinot Gris on skins than a Sauvignon Blanc, but I'm a little bit allergic to Sauvignon Blanc, so that's probably not really. It just doesn't. The flavours don't agree with me, put it that way. There are a few that I enjoy, but it has to be a very special Sauvignon Blanc to bring me pleasure. Yeah. Michael, that 2015 Garden Vineyard Pinot, I know quite a lot of you purchased that Garden Vineyard offer, so thank you very much for that. I'm glad you like the wines. I think that the mix of the 15 and the 16 and the 18s will be very pleasing for you. If you've got somewhere nice and celery to keep those wines, then the 15 I think will age really well for at least another 5 years, probably longer, but it just depends what you want to get out of it. I'm really sorry that we don't have more of that wine to reissue to you now. We had to sort of eke it out bottle by bottle in a mixed pack, but it seemed like the fairest way of getting it out to enough people. So yeah, you could drink it tomorrow night if that's how you feel, or you could keep it for another 5 years or any time in between those times. I know that's not very helpful, Michael, but maybe you'll be able to find some more to put in the cellar down the track. And I will say, I think the 2018 Garden Vineyard Pinot that you got 4 bottles of in your box, I think is going to be an even better wine than the 2015 with a bit more age. So I would put that in the cellar and stash that for a while and give it that lovely 5, 6, 8 years opportunity to develop into a more mature special wine. Yes, Jeff, new oak is very expensive. We buy, as I said to you before, we buy all of our barrels from France, from a cooper in France, and they cost upwards of $1,500 a barrel, and you get flavour from them for 1, maybe 2 years, and then they're flavourless fermentation and storage vessels. They're very beautiful. They're hard work as well, but very good. Oh, Alison, you can drink it next week if you like. Some people like to save their wine for a bit longer, and some people just like to drink it as it comes. So it's all up to you guys. I have run out of time, and I think that it's been a delight to chat to you all, and I'm going to go before I start rabbiting on about rubbish. Kate, I look forward to hearing if you won your trivia. You'll have to tell us next week or send me an email. Everybody else, it's been an absolute delight. And of course, I haven't checked what we're tasting next week. It will be a Pinot Noir. And I have a sneaking suspicion it might be the McIntyre Pinot Noir. Would that be right? I'm just having a look very quickly at our buy wine. I will send you an email on Monday just to remind you what we're tasting. But next week we are indeed, come on website, do your thing. Next week we're looking at the 2018, the Moorooduc McIntyre Pinot Noir. Now this is the wine that has amazing reviews. It's current release. It's going quickly. It'll be really fun to taste that together with you guys. I will put together a list of suggestions for snacks. I will let you all go now. Reggie's up on his wall. I think he snuck up while we were talking about barrels. It's been lovely, guys. Take care. Enjoy your Chardonnay. Enjoy your snacks. Have a lovely evening.